Hello, Matthew Sweigart here. Happy to join you for another installment of my video log. Yesterday, I talked about bonding, and I talked about bonding in regard to bonding and separation. And these being the first two stages of classical initiation, where you bond with and separate from your parents, from mother and father. And what's really fun about today's class, I'm at my office and I want to do a little Qigong meditation with you today, especially on the vessels, excuse me, related to bonding and separation. So I want to suggest to you that there are energy vessels moving through your body. This is what I've spent my lifetime studying and practicing and feeling into. And I'm inviting you into this practice today to discover for yourself, where is the energy of bonding in your body? Where is the energy of separation in your body? In the classics, they put these energies along the midline. We can think of these energies as being along our midline, and the front midline being your vessel of bonding. You bond through eye contact, smell, taste. You swallow, right? It becomes you, it bonds to you. And you separate by showing your back body, right? Turn your shoulder. And so the back midline is the vessel of independence. When I'm teaching this to my students in the shiatsu world, I talk about that energy of when you first left home. Did you slam the door behind you and run as far as you could, as fast as you could to get away from home? Or did you go out the door and gently close the door and turn and look back regularly, right? And I remember reading this great book about an empty nester, the mom who was worried about losing her child when they went off to college or something like that, or went off into the world. And then she found out that she actually lived in a home with a revolving screen door because the kids would come back and they'd just cycle. They'd cycle through because that's the nature of things. So bonding and independence become a loop. They become this yin-yang pair. You can't have one without the other. There is no separation without bonding. There is no bonding without separation. There is no connection without independence. There is no independence without connection. They co-create one another and co-support one another. And so in the Qigong world, there's a simple classic exercise known as the microcosmic orbit, or as I prefer the translation, the small heavenly circle. And in this meditation, you're simply closing your eyes and visualizing this area between the eyebrows, right behind the eyebrows, and the center is the pineal gland, right on that center line, right? And you're going to draw energy from that pineal gland right down the center of the nose to the upper teeth. Now, upper teeth to the lower teeth is a gap. It's your mouth, right? So this is why we place the tip of the tongue on the top palate to connect the gap between the upper teeth and the lower teeth, right? So you bring the tip of your tongue to the top palate. You've got this light emanating from the pineal gland down the nose into the top teeth, then into the tip of the tongue, and then down into the root of the tongue, down the throat, and right down the midline of the front body. And it's going to come through the sternum, xiphoid process, down to the navel center, below the navel center to the pubic bone and the genitals, from the genitals down to the perineum. That's the midpoint between the genitals and the anus, right? And then it moves back through the anus. And, you know, in your yoga practices or your meditation practices, there's something called the locks. So you have a root lock, you have a solar plexus lock, and you have a throat lock. And these are the locks. These are the kind of three vibrating spaces where energy is flowing along the midline. So we're going to encourage energy to flow down the midline of the front all the way to the perineum. And at that point, we're going to let it transform into the midline of the back, going through the anus and up the tailbone, up the spine, and over the crown of the head, down to that point between the eyebrows, then down the bridge of the nose to the teeth again, tip of the tongue, down the tongue, throat, sternum, belly, genitals, perineum, anus, tailbone, all the way back up to the crown of the head and then to the point between the eyebrows once more. And this is, we're circulating energy through these midline vessels. The midline vessels are the vessels of bonding and independence. I once read a very interesting book on, it was on love addiction, actually. And the love addict was a name that the author had discovered early on, someone who's addicted to the feelings of love, bonding, right? And then she didn't have a name for the balancing addiction because she had had several relationships where all she could remember was the person she was in relationship walking away from her. And she called it the back walking away addiction. Back walking away. Then the author shared that indeed this is the avoidance addiction. Right? So this is like has to do with your attachment type. Are you anxious avoidant? Are you anxious attached? Are you attached? Do you bond healthy, balanced way? Do you have a balanced independence? Right? And so is there balance between the front midline and the back midline? And this microcosmic orbit meditation, the small heavenly circle meditation, is our practice to embody a healthy balance between bonding and separation, between love and avoidance, between attachment and detachment, forward and back. Forward and back. And if you'd like, you can certainly sway like this. You can use your hands like this. You can also just sit still and close your eyes and then use your mind's eye to draw that pearl of light down the midline of the front and up the midline of the back and contemplate healthy attachment, healthy detachment, so that you can become healthfully interdependent rather than unhealthily codependent. Codependent no more, they say in the literature. I'm not living just to appease or please. I'm connecting in with my true inner being, my inner self, my inner desires that are honest and true and match who I am and how I show up in the world. And I show up in the world and then I let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes a video like this begins with a sneeze, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's your little lesson today on bonding and independence. Thanks for tuning into my vlog, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Be well, and we'll see you next time, especially if you're attached to these videos, or even if you're unattached. Be well. Bonding and independence.